Years ago, someone asked me a simple question and it completely broke my brain. They asked, "What do you do for fun?" And I just stared at them. I had nothing to share because somewhere along the way, somewhere between managing the effects of my mother's drinking problem my whole life and making sure nobody fell apart, I forgot about having fun. I just didn't have the time or the energy for it because we were all in survival mode in my family. If that hits home for you, if you grew up spending all your energy surviving and never learning how to just play and have fun, this video is for you. I'm Jody and I write about health, happiness, and self-care from the perspective of someone who had to learn all of it from scratch. Today we're talking about something that sounds light on the surface, but is actually one of the most radical things a trauma survivor can do: finding hobbies you actually love. I'm going to walk you through the 5 steps that helped me go from "I have no idea what I like to do" to actually having things in my life that bring me joy. And honestly, step 4 was the one that changed everything for me, so please stick around for that one. And then after the 5 steps, I'm going to share with you the full story of what happened when I actually followed through on this, because it led somewhere I never expected. So stay for that too. Before we get into the steps, I want to talk about why this is so hard for us in the first place. Because if you grew up in a dysfunctional home, whether that involved alcoholism or another addiction, neglect, emotional chaos, poverty, or just the complete absence of anyone modeling a healthy life, there's a very good chance that play was one of the first things that got taken from you. And not necessarily because someone said you're not allowed to play. It was more like there just wasn't room or time for it. When you're a kid and the house is unpredictable, your brain learns one thing really fast: be useful, be invisible, or be ready. That is survival mode, and it doesn't exactly leave a lot of space for fun. So what happens is, over time, you just stop knowing what you like, what is fun for you. Not in a dramatic way, it's more like just the signal goes quiet. Somebody asks what your hobbies are and you genuinely don't have an answer. Or you list things that feel productive, like reading self-help books or organizing the house. Because somewhere deep down, you learned that your worth comes from being useful. And here's the part that nobody really talks about. There's often a harsh inner critic involved. The voice that says things like, "That's a waste of time. You don't have time for that." Or "You're too old for that." Or "You're not creative. Who do you think you are?" That voice isn't yours. It's just what survival mode sounds like when you're grown up. It's the voice that kept you safe as a kid by keeping you small, but you're not a kid anymore. And you're going to learn how to turn that volume down. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you did something purely because it sounded fun? Not productive, not self-improving, not because someone else wanted you to, just because it sounded fun. If you can't remember, that's okay. That's exactly where I was, and that's where we're going to start. Step 1, give yourself the permission slip. This might sound kind of silly, but if you grew up in a home where your needs didn't matter, you may actually need to hear someone say this out loud. You are allowed to do things just because they're fun. You are allowed to be bad at something. You are allowed to spend time on yourself, not because you earned it, because you're a person who deserves to enjoy being alive. I know that might sound obvious, but for a lot of us, it's the thing no one ever said, and we've been waiting to hear it without even knowing we were waiting. So please consider this your sign that you have permission. Write it on a sticky note, whatever you need. Actually, I made a printable permission slip that you can actually stick on your fridge or your mirror, someplace you'll see it often. And it's part of a free starter kit I put together in this video. The link is in the description, but I'll tell you more about that in a few minutes. Step 2, go back to the kid. Here's what I mean by that. Somewhere inside you, there's a version of you who had interest before the world got heavy, before you learned to be the responsible one, before you had to grow up too soon, before play became something you couldn't afford. For me, this step happened in the most unexpected way. When I first started my journey to heal from the effects of growing up with my mother's alcoholism, I found my childhood diaries, and I sat down and read every one of them. And what I found in those pages was this little girl who loved two things more than anything in the world: reading and writing. She wrote stories. She wrote about her day. She wrote about what she wished her life could be. She was a reader and a writer to her core. And when she became a grown-up, she wanted to do something new every day, even if she had the flu. That's what I wrote. She wanted to start a good cause organization one day to help people or animals. And somewhere along the way, between managing the chaos at home and just trying to survive, I stopped. I stopped doing anything for fun. I stopped writing for fun. I stopped reading for pleasure. And I definitely didn't do anything new. Those parts of me didn't die, they just went underground because I was in survival mode. Your version of this might look different. Maybe you don't have old journals, but the question is the same. What did I love before I was told what to be? What did 7-year-old me get excited about? Your assignment, and yes, I'm actually going to give you an assignment, is to sit down for 10 minutes and ask yourself that question. What did 7-year-old you love to do? Don't judge the answers, don't filter them. If 7-year-old you loved dinosaurs, write that down. If she loved climbing trees or making up songs or drawing pictures of horses, write it down. We're going to work with it. Step 3. Experiment with 0 stakes. This is where most people get stuck because the inner critic goes into overdrive. You think about trying something and your brain immediately says, what if I'm bad at it? What if it's a waste of money? What if people think it's weird? Here's the rule. Your first attempt at anything doesn't count. Give yourself a free pass. The goal isn't to be good. The goal is to feel something. After I found those journals and realized how much I missed writing, I did something that scared me. I enrolled in a creative writing course at my local community college. Not to get a degree because I already had one, not to build a career because I already had one, just to see what it felt like to write again in a room full of people, a room full of strangers, with absolutely no pressure to be good at it, just for fun. And it was terrifying and kind of awkward. I hurried from my corporate job to that 6 p.m. class wearing my business attire, and all the other students were like 19 years old. But something happened in that class. I felt a part of myself come back alive, a part I thought I'd lost. And for reading, I kept it even simpler. I got a library card. That was it. I started going to the library and just browsing, picking up whatever caught my eye. No list of books, no self-help to read, no homework, just the pleasure of reading for fun. And sometimes I'd treat myself to a trip to the bookstore and come home with something new, just for me. And that felt radical at the time. I also started walking, just going outside and walking, not to hit a step count or train for anything, just to walk and think and get some clarity. Some of my best ideas and some of my deepest healing have happened on those walks. Your experiments will look different. Maybe it's a beginner pottery class, or a Tai Chi video, or bird watching on your lunch break. Maybe it's buying a $20 Lego set and building it on a Saturday morning. The point is, make it low stakes, make it small, and pay attention to what lights you up inside. And step 4. This is the one I said changed everything for me. Choose delight over performance. When you grow up in dysfunction, you learn that everything has to have a purpose. Rest has to be recovery. Exercise has to be productive. Reading has to be self-improvement. Even your hobbies have to look good on paper, or at least be useful to someone. But here's what I learned, and I mean really learn. Play is not a reward for being productive. Play is a basic human need that was stolen from you. And choosing to play as an adult, choosing to do something just because it delights you with no outcome, no audience, no metric for success, that is one of the most radical acts of healing you will ever do. For me, this was the moment the creative writing stopped being about whether the writing was good enough. The moment the walk stopped being about exercise and started being about peace. It was the moment I picked up a book just because the cover looked interesting, and I let myself read the whole thing in a weekend without feeling guilty about it. I stopped asking, is this productive? And started asking, does this make me feel alive? Does it light me up? And once I made that shift, everything changed. It wasn't overnight. It wasn't some dramatic situation. It was just like a quiet Tuesday kind of way. When I thought about it, this brings me joy. And it mattered more than I can tell you. So if this is resonating with you, if you're sitting there thinking, okay, I actually want to try this, I made something to help. It's called the Hobby Exploration Starter Kit, and it's completely free. It's a short PDF with 30 low-stakes hobby ideas organized by energy level. So whether you're having a high energy day or barely getting off the couch day, there's something on the list for you. And it also has the printable permission slip I mentioned earlier, plus 5 reflection prompts to help you reconnect with what little kid you actually enjoyed. The link is in the description. Just pop in your email and it's yours. And I'll also send an email a couple of times a month with more stuff like this, practical, honest stuff. And you can unsubscribe at any time, of course. Okay, step 5, protect it. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to find something you enjoy, and then almost immediately the old programming is going to try to take it away from you. You'll start enjoying your Saturday morning walks and then think, I should be using this time to clean, or you'll sign up for a class and your brain will say this is selfish. You'll have one bad writing session and the critic will whisper, see, I told you this was stupid. Who do you think you are? Here's what to do. You expect it and you do the thing anyway. Not because the voice goes away, at least it probably won't, at least not at first, but every time you choose joy over that guilt, you're rewiring your brain and rewriting the story. You're telling that little kid inside you, we're safe now, we're allowed to like things, and nobody gets to take that from us. That's step 5, protect the spark. So I promised you I'd tell you where all of this actually led, because I think it's important for you to hear that these small, low-stakes experiments can turn into a life you didn't know was possible. After I took that creative writing class, something shifted. I started writing regularly, not for anyone, not for a deadline, just for myself. I'd write in the mornings, on the weekends, I'd write after my walks. I was filling notebooks again the way that I had as a kid. Except this time, I wasn't writing to escape my life. I was writing to understand it. And as I kept writing, I realized I had a lot to say about what I was going through, about what it's like to grow up around alcoholism and then spend your whole adult life trying to figure out what normal is supposed to feel like. I realized other people were going through the same thing, and that most of them felt just as alone as I had. So I started sharing what I wrote, first through my website, jodylamb.com, and then through YouTube. I started connecting with other adult children of alcoholics, people who understood without me having to explain what it was like to grow up the way that we did. And something incredible happened. The more I shared my story, the more people showed up and said, yeah, that's how I felt. And I thought I was the only one. This community, honestly, including many of you watching right now, became one of the most meaningful things in my life because I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. And I had spent my whole life not feeling that. And the writing, well, that became a book. I actually wrote a book for tweens called Easter and Peter's Operation Cool that came from an assignment in that creative writing class. If you had told the version of me who couldn't answer, what do you do for fun, that day that she'd write a whole book, she would not have believed you. But it happened. Not because I set out to write a book, but because I followed the spark. I chose delight, and the delight led somewhere real. And it didn't stop there. I started volunteering at a children's program at a local addiction treatment facility, working with kids who are right now living what I lived as a kid. And I can't even describe what that felt like, to take everything you went through and use it to help a child feel a little less alone. That's purpose. And I never would have found it if I hadn't first given myself permission to play. I also joined a few writers groups. In person, I showed up in a room full of strangers who loved words and writing as much as I did, and I made real friends. The kinds of friends who ask about your work and actually want to hear the answer. The kind of friends you don't have to perform for. I want you to see the full picture. I went from a person who could not name a single hobby or an activity for fun to someone who has a lot of fun, who writes, reads, takes long walks, volunteers, and has a community of people who get it and made friends doing the things she loves. And it all started with a box of old diaries and the question, what did I used to love? So let's bring it back to where we started. That question, what do you do for fun? I used to dread that question. And now I have an answer. Several, actually. And not because I went on some dramatic adventure or had a big breakthrough, but because I gave myself permission to try things, try little things, and be terrible at them, and to keep the ones that made me feel alive. If you grew up around dysfunction, if no one taught you how to rest, how to play, how to enjoy your own life, I want you to know you just didn't get the blueprint. And it's absolutely not too late to draw your own. Play is not a luxury. It's not something you earn. For people like us, choosing play is a radical act of reclamation. It's how we take back the childhood that was stolen from us, not by reliving it, but by finally living the part that we missed. So here's what I want you to do right now. In the comments, tell me, what did 7-year-old you love? What was the thing that lit you up before the world got so heavy? I read every single comment and I would love to hear yours. And if this video helped you, please hit the subscribe button. I make videos every week about health, happiness, and learning to actually take care of yourself for anyone who had to figure it out on their own. This is what this channel is all about. And don't forget to grab the free Hobby Exploration Starter Kit. The link is right below in the description. I'll see you in the next one. And hey, go do something fun today. You deserve it.